Steve Jobs of Apple said, "Your work is going to fill a large part of your life, and the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do."
Now, today's guest not only does great work, but truly seems to love what he does. Welcome to Celebrate Michigan. I'm Cheryl Choden.
And I'm Chris Benson. Joining us today is Mark S. Lee, President and CEO of the Lee Group, Michigan LLC. It's an independent, integrated marketing consulting firm focused on providing marketing, branding, and communication solutions to clients. Additionally, in his spare time, he writes the Small Talk with Mark S. Lee, a blog for Crain's Detroit Business, which, of course, as you know, is a leading weekly business publication in the Midwest. And again, when he finds a few extra moments, as if that isn't enough, he also hosts a radio show on CBS Detroit, WXYT AM 1270. Wow.
That is a lot. Welcome to our show. We are so happy to have you.
Oh, thank you.
I guess the first thing we want to ask you really is, how did you get so involved in business? How did you become so in love with business?
You know, that's a great question. And by the way, thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here. Excuse me. How did I get involved in business? It's ingrained in my family. My father was a long-time banker in Detroit, so I was exposed to it at a very young age. And when I went to college, I took all business classes and I got involved in a lot of business courses and doing some work in college. And I went to graduate school, continued, got my MBA in marketing. And then when I left Northwestern University in Chicago, I worked at different corporations throughout the course of my corporate career. And every step of the way, I just love working in business. It was like, that's what I've been trained to do, going back to my father and the way I was raised.
And it sounds like education played a big piece of that puzzle for you as well.
I cannot speak enough about education. I think that every job that I've had, every step that I've made along the way, I tell people I always learn something from that job. And it helped me to understand, from my standpoint, the building blocks for my career. And I think that was very helpful for me to certainly do that. Yes, education is crucial.
And you know what I think too? One of the great things about you, I believe, in reading about you, is that you make business, which some people might find a little complex or even mundane, you make it exciting. So how do you do that?
Because I have a passion for business. I have a passion for Detroit. And we know how Detroit, the transition the city's gone through, the metropolitan area, the state of Michigan as well. And I know that business is a complex thing. So what I try to do is I try to simplify it for people. Right. And I try to talk in language that they understand. I don't talk in performance statements. I don't talk in terms of the corporate speak. I try to break it down. When I break it down like that, and my enthusiasm and my passion for business, it comes through with my guests, and I think it comes through with the audience as well.
And has this just always been something? I mean, did you have a lemonade stand when you were just about this high? Did you always know that it was going to be entrepreneurial for you?
No. Great question. I always knew that I was going to be working in corporate. And in fact, I spent the first 25 plus years in my career working in corporate. So let me give you my background, the traditional background. Grew up in Detroit, went to high school, Southfield High School, graduated from high school, straight path to Eastern Michigan University, so you go straight to college.
Right.
And then I went to MBA, got my MBA, and then I went straight into the corporate world. That was the track that we were trained to do. But what happened is that every step of the way, like I said earlier, I learned something in the corporate sphere. And I noticed from my standpoint, I was most successful when I could be an entrepreneur in the corporate space. As my career continued to grow and advance, and then things happen in your career, mergers and acquisitions. I made a decision that I was going to walk away from the corporate space and start my own business. So I didn't have the lemonade stand. This kind of came midway through my career that I wanted to try entrepreneurship.
Now tell me something, when you started to do that, was it contagious to the other people that you would be in contact with? Do you think you were almost a teacher as well?
Absolutely. And yes. In fact, so many people kept saying to me, you have so many connections in Detroit. I've also lived in 8 or 9 different cities across the country because of my career. I kept getting promoted in the corporate space. But when I came back to Detroit on a full-time basis, I was a victim of a corporate acquisition. I made a personal decision that I did not want to relocate from the city that I love, where I have a lot of connections and contacts to another city. So I left, and that was a scary thought. And I started playing golf every day. Except the problem is in Detroit, it gets cold. And I started, but when I would play golf, people kept saying, you know, you have so many connections. You use your knowledge, work with other people. And so, yes, I became Cheryl. I became a teacher. I started engaging and working with others. And they kept pushing me along to start my own business. That's exactly how the Lead Group started.
And it sounds like you took something that for many people, when there's an acquisition or a downsizing or a change, you know, it really affects people. And you took that experience and were able to really transform yourself through it.
You know, I call it career reinvention. I was fortunate enough to recently speak here at Badani University as part of the CEO series. And I made the comment that although I went down this one path in the corporate space, midstream I started to reinvent myself. I started to re-image and build my own personal brand. So yeah, you know, don't be afraid to take that chance. And I think that's what happened to me, is I started to re-image myself and took chances for myself, and it seems to have worked out for me.
And you were willing to take that risk too, because sometimes for people who think, you know, I'm going to work at this company until I get this position, or I've got this plan, right? It's going to be this many years and I'm going to keep going. And when that plan, there's a disruption in that plan, they have a hard time bouncing back. But for you, that was actually a spark, it sounds like.
It was a spark, but I took a calculated risk. And what I tell people is this: I could not have done this 25 years ago or 30 years ago. Because one, I didn't have the experience, the knowledge. Number two, I didn't have the financial resources. Number three, I didn't have that entrepreneurial experience, and I kind of alluded to that earlier. So I think once I got the experience and once I went through it, when I made the decision, it was a calculated risk for me to leave. It was not a rash decision. I looked at I weighed the pros and cons and said, do I really want to relocate to another city? And by the way, everybody who relocated lost their jobs within 6 months.
Wow.
They uprooted their families. And I looked at that and I said, I knew that I made the right decision. So it was a risk, but it was a calculated risk.
What was the biggest obstacle for you as you took that risk?
Wow, that's a great question. The biggest obstacle, I had no clients and I had no income coming in from the business. So fortunately, I had resources from my corporate life. I was able to invest my resources. But think about this for a second. I was in a very comfortable experience, a very comfortable environment in corporate America. You know, I got a championship ring from the Miami Heat, from all the things I've done. I've negotiated deals with the Orlando Magic, you name it, I've probably done it.
Yeah.
So I was in a very comfortable space. But I walk away from that. And so I think the biggest challenge is you walk away from that with nothing.
Wow.
No clients, no, you know, just nothing.
Well, we're going to hear more about that in a second. We're going to take a short break. We'll hear more about that when we come back. Stay tuned.
When life's this hard, it's no wonder 7,000 students drop out every school day. Visit boostup.org and help kids in your community stay in school.
So my uncle calls and he says he's dizzy and he's losing his balance. I'm like, Unc, you want me to take you to a doctor? He's like, no, I'm gonna look up the symptoms. I said, your symptoms are you're dizzy and you're losing your balance. So he said, I can't get on the internet because my arm is numb. I said, well, use your good arm and dial 911. Stroke's no joke. If you or someone you love is showing symptoms of stroke, don't wait because it might be too late. Dial 911. Time lost is brain lost.
I present to you Algebra 2, Foreign Languages, and finally, Biology. Who among you will step up to their challenge?
Me.
Yeah, I'll do it. Me too. Sign me up.
Take on the tough classes now. You need them to prepare for college.
In 1977, an 8-year-old boy picked up the game of golf from his father. The odds of that same boy then making it to the US and European pro golf tours, 1 in 7 million. The odds of the Big Easy winning the US Open twice, 1 in 1.2 billion. The odds of him having a child diagnosed with autism, 1 in 110. Ernie Els encourages you to learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
Welcome back to Celebrate Michigan. I'm Chris Benson.
And I'm Cheryl Choden. With us today is Mark S. Lee, President and CEO of the Lee Group. And he was talking about something very exciting when we took a break.
Yes, the passion, the enthusiasm was building, and then we had to go to a break. So you were talking about some of the challenges and just how you did finish your story. We heard about a ring. There was a championship ring.
Yeah.
And
You had everything, and then...
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was flying corporate jets. Oh yeah, I was flying all over. I was doing public speaking on behalf of corporations. You name it, I've had it. And then here's what happened in my career, though. Towards the end of my corporate career, you know, I was in a meeting, I'll never forget this, and I was responsible for a major project for a major organization. Of course, I'm not going to say who it was. But long story short, I'm having dinner with my boss. We're having a big dinner meeting at a great restaurant in Florida, and I've got some people from my business partners are with me. As we're getting ready to close the meeting, I asked for the check. My boss says, no, I'll take the check. I said, uh-oh, something's going on. He asked the business partners to leave. In a nutshell, he says, as soon as they left, we have to let you go.
oh my.
I said, whoa, whoa. I just negotiated all these deals. I do have a championship ring for the Miami Heat. I was doing videos with the Miami Heat,
Oh, my
the Jacksonville
goodness.
Jaguars. I've done all types of videos across the country, and you're letting me go. He says, well, we think you're too big for us.
Oh my.
He says, we don't think you're big enough. And I said, whoa. So that's the rest of the
He
story.
said you're too big or not big enough.
He thought that I was too big for what they were trying to do because of this image, this image I was portraying, the business that I was out there. People knew who I was. I was very much the face of the organization. So my point in sharing that story with you, no matter, even if you're a high flyer, you're doing very well, something can upset your apple cart. And that was my wake-up call. And when I had that wake-up call, and by the way, I just had a performance review that was off the chart.
Oh, wow.
The reason I was asked to leave the organization is there was a new management team brought in, and the guy released the old school, if you will, the old employees, and they brought in his own team. And that's the rest of the story. And that became truly the impetus for me to start the Lee Group.
So let me ask you this. When that happened, emotionally, what was going through your mind when that happened?
I was devastated. I was devastated because I spent my entire career to get to that point. I mean, I literally I was Senior Vice President, Chief Marketing Officer for major organizations. I was reporting directly to CEOs. You know, again, I was relatively well known. But things of that sort, I was very successful in corporate life. But as soon as I got the news, it was like somebody just yanked the rug from underneath me. And I was devastated.
And how long did that devastate? I mean, were you able to turn it around right away, or did you have to have somebody give you a pep talk, or did you have to give yourself a pep talk? Because one door closes, another one opens. Right. We know that.
Yeah. And what I did is, I think to answer your question, Cheryl, I took some time for myself.
Yeah.
I just took some time. I debriefed. I kind of, recalibrated my thought process. I got rid of the anger, because there was a lot of anger and frustration. I was working 60-hour weeks. I was putting my time and energy into the organization. So yeah, I have friends who gave me pep talks. I'm also a faith-based person, so I put my thoughts, in that situation as well. But I just took some time for me, just to recalibrate and kind of chill. That's what I did.
And then realize what it is that you really want. And there's so many things. I mean, it's funny to now be hearing this story after the intro where we're saying, there's a blog, there's a radio station, there's all, the company, Lee Group, there's so many things. So you got to do it your way.
I did it my way.
And that's something to be said.
Yeah, and it is something to be said. I appreciate that. But the other thing I appreciate is the support that I had of my family and of friends. I have two, not kids, they're adults now. Probably my biggest fans. They just picked me up when I need to be picked up. The friends did that. So, it was truly an enlightening experience, but I wouldn't trade it for the world.
I was going to say, sometimes it could be a blessing and a curse. Maybe it was a blessing in a way.
I think it was a blessing.
What happened to you? Maybe it turned the corner for you.
Yeah. I think it did, because what I realized is, remember I started a whole conversation by saying the businesses where I was most successful from a career standpoint was where I felt like I was an entrepreneur. And then all of a sudden I have all this freedom. And I got to figure out my next move. So I was able to start to build my business, build the entrepreneurial space that's led me to these other doors that are now opening up for me as well. So it was a blessing.
How do you juggle everything? How do you juggle it all? I mean, everything that Chris was saying, the radio show, the blog, the whatever. How do you juggle all of that?
You know, one of the things that my parents taught me was to manage time. I'm a very strong time manager. I have the electronic calendars. I keep everything in front of me, with me. But I've been blessed with the opportunity of knowing how much time I can give. But I also know when to say no. I have a lot of people asking me to do certain things, and I respectfully have to say no because I just don't have time. So I've been able to find that balance from all of my commitments to trying to have some time for just myself as well.
And I looked on your website and noticed you talk about branding and all those different things. And would you say that you had to look at your own brand and figure out what is it that I am, what is my product, who am I, and what is it that I do?
I cannot agree with you more. It forced me, I had a very strong brand in the corporate space, and my brand was built around marketing and helping organizations to brand and rebrand themselves. So yes, when I left, I had to look at myself internally and figure out who am I as a business person? What do I want to represent? What do I want my business to represent? So yes, I had to take a good hard look at my own personal brand.
And now you are able to do that in a very authentic, having done it for yourself, for your customers, and do that for them and help them position and figure out who they are.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
And when you do that, do you feel, when you talk to your customers about their branding, what do you say to them? Tell me in a brief way, what do you say to them about their, I mean, what is the most important thing about branding?
The brand, does it represent what your customers are looking for?
So what you see is what you get.
What you see is what you get, and probably the 5-second headline, do not overpromise and under-deliver. A lot of organizations will make promises and they can't deliver on that. So once you do that, you have 15 seconds to make that initial impression with someone. And I think as I talk to organizations about branding, make sure that you have a realistic brand promise and don't under-deliver on that.
Do you think some do?
Yes, absolutely.
And what happens when they do?
You lose a customer. If you do it on a consistent basis, we're forgiving people. Americans are forgiving people. We're a forgiving consumer base, but if you do it time in, time out, you're going to lose that customer. They will start shopping around.
Wow, so much to take in. Well, we are going to take a very brief break, but when we come back, you're going to hear more about Mark, so stay tuned.
Oops. Yeah, sure. Let's go.
Moms everywhere are finding ways to keep kids active and healthy.
Works every time.
Get ideas, get involved, get going at letsmove.gov.
Learning how to kickflip 6 stairs takes determination. So will getting into college. I've got what it takes. So do you.
I want to see the world.
When you pick up a book,
I used to read every night to all the younger kids,
and let your imagination break free, you won't believe how much fun it can be.
Let down your help!
Experience a world of adventure, excitement, and endless possibilities. Get tangled up in a good book. Explore new worlds. Read. Visit read.gov today.
Welcome home, man.
Welcome back to Celebrate Michigan. I'm Cheryl Choden.
And I'm Chris Benson. With us today is Mark S. Lee, President and CEO of the Lee Group. You've been hearing us talk with him about the many things he does for the group. And we want to talk about your blog, which is one of the things we kept saying we were going to get to.
Sure.
I read through your website, saw you've got tons of blogs, which again were so interesting to read. And I saw one about you just were walking downtown one day by Campus Martius and started seeing some things. You saw a food truck, you saw people in the park, and you just talked about how you were feeling. Do you remember this blog I'm talking about?
I know exactly.
Remember this day?
Yes, I do. I can tell you exactly what that day was. It was the day that there was the power outage in downtown Detroit, probably back in August, I believe. And along those lines, I was in a meeting on the 17th floor. All the power went out. I walked down 17 flights of stairs. And I had to walk back to my car because I had meetings. And I remember saying to myself, whoa, look at all these people. There was music playing. You had food trucks. The average age was like 25 years old. In fact, I ran into an ex-student of mine as I was walking. And I remember I just kind of caught that moment. And I wrote the blog basically saying I've never seen this energy in downtown Detroit. And in fact, I think I wrote in there, for a moment I thought I was in New York and Chicago because I actually heard people blowing horns and people riding bikes. It was the coolest thing.
And that's, as we were talking over the break, you know, being in the Detroit area, how much we love it here, and we want to see it become so much more. We know we've got a way to go, but, you know, it's so wonderful to see that energy and hear that energy and be there amongst it.
You know, and I can't agree much more than that. I mean, I think Detroit is the hottest city right now, meaning what I mean by that is, because I get asked about that because my blogs are right, Detroit is under a spotlight. I get more emails from people across the country. I got an email recently from San Diego. Said, we read all your articles. You're making us want to come to Detroit to come visit. You know, and I think that's the story, the message that we need to get out.
Well, from a business standpoint, how do you see this in the future, in the near future?
Near term, I think things are turning around. We have a long ways to go, but here's going to be the key to Detroit's future. Yes, we talked about the thank goodness for Dan Gilbert's and Mayor Duggins and Mike Illich and the Carmanos, although he's no longer downtown. But entrepreneurship is going to play a major role in revitalizing Detroit's future as well. Because Detroit's 139 square miles, there are 35,000 businesses in the city of Detroit, minority-owned businesses, the fourth largest, if you think about that, fourth largest in the city, fourth largest in the country. If each one employs 5 people, that's 150,000 people employed by small businesses. So I think the future looks good. It's still going to take us to a ways to get there, some time to get there. But with all the efforts that are going on downtown and with entrepreneurship, you know, watch Detroit in 3 to 5 years. You won't recognize what's happening in the city 3 to 5 years from now.
If you were going into Detroit schools right now, which I think might be a good idea, and talking to young people who might be interested in going into business, what would you tell them?
I would tell them, go for it. I think that business is a great tool. It's a great tool of growing wealth, capital, helping people. Certainly business is something, if you have a passion for something, live your dream. If I went to a high school and I talked to high school students, and if somebody said, Mr. Lee, I'm really thinking about becoming a business person, I would certainly encourage them. But make sure you get the proper level of experience, okay? Don't just jump into something because you have a passion for it. You still have to educate yourself. You still have to learn the ins and outs of running a business. But I think that business that goes a long ways in helping America's economy and then locally, certainly Detroit's economy.
So your message has gotten out via your group, the blog. I understand you also have a radio show. So what do you talk about on your radio show, and where does that go?
Think about the radio show being an extension of the blog.
Okay.
So my blog does go across the country. Whenever I write something, it goes probably, I think, to 200,000 people.
Awesome.
Wow.
Yeah, it goes all over. The radio show is an extension of the blog. So what I talk about on the radio show, which is called Small Talk with Mark S. Lee, we also focus on entrepreneurship and small business development. I will also talk about issues affecting Detroit. I don't talk about anything negative, but I talk about how do we continue to build this city. The show is broadcast nationally. It's streamed via cbsdetroit.com. You click on XYT, AM 1270. You can also go to radio.com and click on AM 1270. You can listen to the show. But it goes across 5 million people in metropolitan Detroit. and I also have listenership in Northwest Ohio and over in Canada.
Wow.
Now, do you work out of, where is your actual office?
I have a home office.
At a home office. So you do your radio show out of your home?
No, I do my radio show out of CBS Detroit in Southfield. So a lot of us may have heard of WWJ.
Right.
So my studio
I
is
used to
right
work there.
There you go. Well, that's
You might have heard of
Back
it.
in the day before Channel 7?
Yes, yeah. Well, we all know you from Channel 7. But clearly, my studio is at WWJ right over in Southfield.
And I feel like, the small talk, the entrepreneurship, the business owners, I feel like this is such a hot topic, Shark Tank and clients and products. I mean, everywhere you go, this is the conversation. So do you see that being, again, a trend for the future? Is small businesses just on the way, or are we dying out? What do you see for that?
No, this is going to continue. I had a conversation with somebody recently, and let me just say this. Detroit has to capitalize on this opportunity. We have a 3 to 5 year window. 3 to 5 year window, because you know what's going to happen? It's going to become another city that's hot.
Right.
And then the attention and the spotlight's going to go over there. So we have to jump on this. And I really believe, yes, the Shark Tanks, I get a lot of invitations to speak to businesses. I get a lot of invitations to judge events.
Yeah.
I've never seen it like this before. So we have to capitalize on it, leverage what we have here to help take the city to another level.
Are we doing it?
Yes, slowly. Slowly.
I mean, are we capitalizing on it, do you
We're
think?
starting to. I just had a conversation with JP Morgan Chase recently. They just invested $100 million in Detroit. And in a nutshell, they're excited to be here out of New York, out of Philadelphia. So yes, we're beginning to leverage it. We still got a ways to go, though.
So if one of our watchers, our viewers, our watchers and viewers wanted to check you out on your website, what would they need to go to for you?
Okay, thank you for asking. They go to Lee Group Innovation. That's LeeGroupInnovation.com. Innovation is singular.
Okay.
So LeeGroupInnovation.com.
And you've got a number of different success stories out there about, I saw some, again, connections to the blogs, information about the radio, also talking about the various products you offer, and so they can learn all about that there.
Everything is there, and if you got any questions, they can certainly email me through the website as well.
Well, we have totally enjoyed having you on the show. Very interesting. I love the way that your career has up and down, but that one down brought you up so high, and I think that's so cool. We love it, and we want people to go to your website again. Say what it is again.
LeeGroupInnovation.com.
Well, you heard that, so thank you so much for being with us.
And we're glad to have you, and stay tuned for next week when you hear more about the great things that are going on in Michigan.